I know he's still fighting, but I already find myself looking at Charles Oliveira's reign with nostalgic glasses. I don't mean to talk about the guy like he's Rambo or something.
Killed. Period. Win by attrition. Well, Rambo was the best.
I mean, he's not dead. Hell, he might get the belt back. But his title reign really was something special. I stand by the words I've used to describe him before. Legit pound-for-pound talent, with one of the most well-rounded skill sets in all of MMA. After subbing Kevin Lee and taking Tony Ferguson's arm home with him, lifelong contender Charles Oliveira finally got his chance at the belt. Standing in his way, noted windmill puncher and UFC newcomer, Michael Chandler. Charlie Olives would make the most of his opportunity, enduring some legitimate adversity in round 1, only to storm through Chandler at the very start of round 2. Winning by TKO, capturing the belt in a record 28 UFC fights, and kickstarting what's been affectionately referred to as the Olive Era. Charles finally got his well-deserved moment in the sun, and in a fight where he was truly tested under the biggest lights. Having a kid is said to be the motivation he needed to hit that next level. How long would he run with it? He was still in his prime, and somehow only getting better. First up, the greatest fighter to never be undisputed champion, El Diamante Dustin Poirier. Unbreakable will, career-altering power, and I know it's a cliche at this point, but it bears repeating. Tough as nails. Charles was going to have to deal with some legitimate adversity if he wanted to retain his belt. This wasn't going to be easy. There's no such thing as an easy Dustin Poirier fight. And if Charles was going to quit, Dustin was going to be the guy to bring that out. Dustin was seconds away from the belt numerous times in the first round. The power difference in levels in boxing seemed apparent. But this isn't boxing. Charles hung in there. Dustin probably burned a bit too much gas trying to get the finish early. And by the third, Charles wore Dustin out, took his back, and secured his first title defense. I'm a massive Dustin fan.
No way!
But seriously, a hellacious rally from Charles. And at the time, the biggest fight of his career. Who's next? Justin Gaethje is the Grim Reaper of MMA. In a sport full of hyperbole and overemphasizing things like power, this statement is 100% true. Justin Gaethje's power ends fighters' careers. There are several noted fighters to never win another fight again after being knocked out by Justin Gaethje. We went from Chandler to Dustin, now to Gaethje. Motherfucker's speedrunning the BMF thing. And Charles has been hit hard in every single fight. How does he respond to someone whose punching power is said to be one of the best in the entire sport pound for pound? Charles had to go through it again. Gaethje got a couple early knockdowns, and whatever the hell this was, but with Charlie Olives being a 4th degree black belt on the ground, where pretty much nobody wants to chase him to the ground unless you're a psycho from Russia or Armenia. He's also one punch away from changing the fight at all times. Everyone says that, but with Oliveira, again, it's actually true. It's why I say he's one of the most well-rounded guys in the sport. There's really no spots to actively exploit. But once he got settled in, Charles went to war, made Justin punch himself out, and took home his second title defense. Yes, it was Don't You Talk Back to Me.
Oh my God, is gonna do it! This dude right here, man. Charles Oliveira, 11 in a row, and still the best lightweight on planet Earth.
Tremendous.
On top of the world, getting comparisons drawn to Khabib. 2 title defenses deep. Who's next for the reinvented Charles Oliveira? Khabib 2, Islam Makhachev. I've always viewed Islam as Khabib, obviously, with a slightly different wrestling style, more power in his hands, better striking, but more hittable and less willing to stick to the game plan. You know how DC would randomly go rogue and stand with people while his coaches would be in the corner having a hemorrhagic stroke? Islam kind of does the same thing. In the lead up to this one, Charles seemed flustered. He would speak with this tone of kind of the world being against him. I didn't really see any of that, and it kind of made me wonder if the moment and the opponent and everything kind of together got to him. I won't speak for the man, but he seemed rattled in the lead up alone to this fight. And being out of sorts, going against one of the main pupils of the Smesh Factory, especially with the GOAT in his corner, is a recipe for absolute disaster. With Khabib in his corner, Islam delivered a sharp, measured performance that exploited Charles' striking tendencies, and on top of that, demonstrated that Islam has one of the best squeezes in the sport. Seriously, that tap was almost instant.
Islam Makhachev submits Charles Oliveira to win the title! What a way to stamp yourself the best in the world! Makhachev submits the greatest finisher in UFC history!
This is a tough loss for Charles. A lot of people wondered if he could bounce back. Had we seen the end of the Oliveira? The person to answer that question? Beneil Dariush. Solid fighter on a long streak, but against unranked guys and the ghost of Tony Ferguson. Back against the wall, on the verge of losing the momentum he had worked 10 years for, Charles stayed composed, settled in, and got Beneil out of there in 4 minutes. In a perfect example of the rare MMA y'all must have forgot. Charles would drop a controversial split decision to the #1 contender before dismantling Michael Chandler again, just kind of for kicks. For as experienced as he is, he still has more to give. He's right there at the top still, and I truly think it'd be a crime against fighting if we didn't see him get one more title shot before his prime comes to an end.